So we're here to talk about your exchange to it in Saudi Arabia. How did that come about?
It came about primarily because up until not long before I went to Saudi, the Tornado ADV training was done in UK, and then the simulator was ready, a full mission simulator which they needed to train the ab initios, and the training system basically moved from Coningsby to Saudi Arabia, and they were looking for people. One or two people had been there for a while and were due to leave, and I managed to get a job replacing one of those people. And that seemed like a very good option to me, better than flying a desk, that's for sure. And we'd already been there for Gulf War I. We deployed soon after the invasion of Kuwait, so I knew what I was getting into and where I was getting into it.
So was there much competition to get that kind of that slot?
I don't know, because you never found out if there was any competition or not. But obviously it was, at that stage, it was one in, one out. So you had to wait until there was a vacancy. And then of course you had to make sure that it was approved at all the different levels. And it was viewed, I think, quite rightly as a very important contract for UK. And there was a great deal of investment in it as a result.
Did you have to have a certain amount of hours before you could go over there?
Not that I was aware of, but obviously they're looking for experienced people who were capable of instructing them, and people who were, in my case, able to instruct from the back seat of the Tornado, because not everybody was qualified to do that.
What squadron and base were you assigned to?
I went to Dhahran, 29 Squadron, which was interesting. I'd already been on 29 Squadron Phantoms in UK, but it was an entirely different sort of squadron. And a very interesting transition, really, because I'd had a tour in the States on exchange, and obviously experienced their training system and their way of operating. And of course a lot of the Saudi Air Force had also trained in the States, and their Air Force tended to operate in a sort of hybrid way as Royal Air Force and United States Air Force, and they picked, I think quite rightly, the best from both air forces, and so their system of operating was more closely aligned with the Americans than ours. But some of them had already flown the Lightning in particular, and I think it was the Lightning that really enthused the Saudi pilots, and the ex-Lightning people on the Tornado were they were a little bit disappointed with the change in performance, let's put it that way.
I can imagine. But yeah, can you talk us through when you first arrived, what your initial thoughts?
Well, of course, I'd been there already, so that most of my initial thoughts were about trying to find some decent accommodation, and particularly for my wife and I. And that was a little bit tricky to begin with, and in the end we managed to get a villa on a compound that was constructed by the Bin Laden company, which might be a familiar name to some. But yes, that was I think that company was from the father of Bin Laden. I don't think he had anything to do with it, because certainly our house never went bang. So.
Yeah, that's a good thing. So yeah, let's talk about the F3. Was there much difference from the RAF F3s?
Not an enormous difference. There were some differences. The Saudis were quite insistent that their Tornado F3 should be identical to the RAF F3, with one major exception, which was very good for them, actually. They had auto wing sweep, auto manoeuvre devices, which took a great deal of the workload off the pilot, particularly in combat. And I think it was something in the RAF that we never realised how effective it was. We knew that a well-trained pilot could beat the automatic system any day, a bit like the difference between an automatic sports car and a manual gearbox sports car. But of course that depended on what else you were doing at the time. Well, the Royal Air Force has certainly lost one Tornado F3 through not having auto wing sweep. That was an unfortunate case where the wings were far too far back for the speed at which the aircraft was travelling. But in Saudi service, it was a blessing. It really was, and I mean, it's just a shame the RAF never had it.